Hello everybody. Today we'll be talking about the evolutionary mechanisms that is found in nature. What you need to do for me is you need to follow along while I read and fill out the notes page that is provided for you in Canvas. It is estimated that approximately 8.7 million species of eukaryotes and 10,000 species of prokaryotes live on Earth today, according to a 2011 study. This report also suggests that 86% of all species on Earth and 91% of all species in the ocean have not been identified yet. What led to the incredible diversity of species on Earth? Okay. So, mechanisms of biological evolution. Okay. The process of evolution, or genetic change over time, has resulted in the wide variety of living things that that make their home on this planet. Scientists have described 5 mechanisms that drive evolution. These mechanisms are essentially how evolution works. So we have natural selection, mutation, genetic drift, gene flow, and recombination. Okay, so natural selection is our first one we're going to talk about. So you guys have already talked about natural selection, or at least have read about it. So here it is in a more detailed form. Natural selection and mutations. Darwin introduced the theory of evolution by natural selection in 1859. He suggested that all species descended from one common ancestor and claimed that organisms diversified or evolved through a process called natural selection. In natural selection, organisms with characteristics that are well suited for their environment tend to survive and reproduce. When they reproduce, they pass their characteristics, adaptations, onto their offspring. Okay? So once again, when organisms reproduce, they pass their characteristics onto their offspring through the genes. Organisms with characteristics not well suited in the environment are not likely to survive and reproduce and pass on their characteristics. So this is really important for the survival of species. The selection in natural selection refers to the selective pressure the environment places on the population of an organism. Okay? The environment cannot support all the individuals in a population. There may not be enough food, water for everybody, and predators kill members of the population. These factors place pressure on the population. The organisms that are well adapted to the environment are in a way selected by the environment to survive. Okay? So, and there's a part on your notes where it says natural selection, and I think you have to write like a definition. This would be a great definition to write. Okay? Those 2 sentences that I highlighted. Okay? Okay. Scientists have been able to observe natural selection in action in the Galapagos Islands. When a drought occurred, researchers noticed that the characteristics of local finch populations changed. The drought caused finches' food source seeds to become dry and tough. The researchers observed that finches with large, strong beaks are better able to crack open the seeds than finches with small, weak beaks. The finches are large, strong beaks survived to reproduce and pass on their genes for large, strong beaks to their offspring. Fewer finches with small beaks survived. Over time, the population changed to include more finches with large, strong beaks than finches with small beaks. Okay? And you guys read that in your gizmo you did last week. Okay? So on your thing, it asks if natural selection increases or decreases diversity. Just to give you a heads up, natural selection is going to decrease species diversity. Sorry guys, not the best speller. Okay, But the reason why is that in natural selection, you are actually taking organisms out of the environment. So fewer organisms remain. Okay, so only the best fit are going to survive in natural selection. Okay, so on to the next mechanism, which is mutations. Okay, mutations generate the raw material for natural selection. A mutation is any change in the sequence of DNA in a cell. Okay, that'd be important to write down. Okay, mutations can be harmful, beneficial, or neutral, meaning they have no effect on the organism in which the mutation occurs. Mutations occur at random. According to Darwin, when an individual is born with a beneficial mutation, that individual is more likely to survive than others without a mutation. A principle called survival of the fittest. The beneficial mutation is likely passed on to the next generation. Okay, mutations are random. They do not occur. They do not result of a need. For example, if an organism suddenly turns much colder than it is or was before, its DNA will not simply generate a new mutation as a result in thicker fur. A mutation may naturally arise that results in thicker fur, but an organism cannot generate a mutation for a specific purpose. So what that means is that you can't just pop up and one day wake up and have a mutation for fur if it's really cold. It's not going to happen. Okay? And mutations with terms of species diversity, it can increase it. It can have no effect on species diversity. It could decrease it, just depending. So mutations are very, very weird with species diversity. So in that spot, you can put increase, decrease, or neutral. Okay. The third one is genetic drift. Okay. So genetic drift is another mechanism of evolution. In contrast to natural selection, which favors certain traits, genetic drift is a random process. Genetic drift refers to the idea that a specific trait controlled by alleles on a chromosome can become more or less common in the population completely by chance. Okay, so once again, genetic drift refers to the idea that specific traits controlled by the alleles on a chromosome can become more or less common to a population completely by chance. This process can change the diversity of a species, particularly small populations. As a small population gets smaller, the random elimination of a few individuals could eliminate the trait if no individuals happen to have that trait to pass it down to the next generation. So it could limit species diversity in this case. Okay. Consider the diagram of frogs shown on the next page. Okay, suppose that a chance occurrence, so natural disaster such as a temporary drought, happens to kill 3 brown frogs in the population. The brown frogs do not survive to pass on their traits into the next generation. As a result, the brown allele for skin color is lost to the population. So the diversity of this population has decreased. Okay, so I would write that down. So like I said earlier, genetic drift is going to decrease the species diversity. Okay, so if you all see here, we had 3 brown frogs. Okay, and we had a ton of green ones. A drought occurred, and those 3 frogs died, meaning we only have green frogs. Okay. With up here, we had lots of diversity because we had brown, we have green, and down here, we only have green, okay? You want species diversity. You want this top part, okay? You want this. A population needs species diversity. It's really important. Okay. So here we have number 4, and this is gene flow, okay? Not what I wanted. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. There we go. So gene flow is the movement. Here you go. This is what you need to write down. Gene flow is the movement of alleles into a population. Okay. So it can either increase or decrease genetic diversity in a population. There's your answer for that. Okay, so those two sentences right there are your answers for your notes. Okay, genes can be added to a gene pool of a population when individuals enter the population. So that's immigration. In contrast, genes may be removed from a population when individuals leave that population, and that's immigration. So that's when they're leaving. Many farmers and gardeners rely on gene flow to produce hybrids. Hybridization is the act of bringing two species together with different traits to produce offspring that have both traits. Okay? So here we have migration. We have little bugs. So what's happening here, okay? This is showing you gene flow, okay? So in this case, this little bug is going over here. So this population, the green population, species diversity increases. Okay, the reason why is now you're going to have a little brown bug. Okay, so this population, species diversity, is increasing. So the migration here is helping it. However, over here, population 2, species diversity is decreasing because you were taking away a bug. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so in gene flow, once again, let's go back up here. Gene flow is this the movement of alleles? So you can kind of see that in the bugs. They're moving away from or into a population. And it can either increase or decrease the diversity of the population. Okay, so down here, population 1 is going to increase the diversity. And in population 2, it's going to decrease it. So I know that's kind of confusing, but you want to be population 1, not population 2. Okay. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about today is recombination. Oh, crap. Did it again, didn't I? There we go. Okay, so recombination, I guess that word is in there twice. So recombination is a process by which genetic material from different individuals becomes combined during sexual reproduction. Okay, recombination can result in enormous diversity in species. So that means increase. So enormous means to increase. So let me put a little red arrow going up. Okay, it's going up. So the increase of diversity. Okay. Through sexual recombination, alleles are shuffled and reproduce multitudes of new combinations within every generation. And organisms are able to generate millions of new allele combinations in their gametes or sex cells. Okay. During prophase 1 of meiosis, sections from one arm of a homologous chromosome break off and cross over to the matching section on the corresponding homologous chromosome. This act of crossing over dramatically widens the possibility of new gene combinations when egg and sperm come together to form a zygote. Okay, so all you need to know about recombination, okay, it's happening during sexual reproduction. Genes are shuffled, meaning you're going to have a new diverse gene selection occurring. So this is really good. The recombination is how species survive. You really want this to happen in nature. Okay? So in recombination, it's going to increase species diversity. Okay? So once again, let's go back to the top. Let's make sure you got everything. Okay? So the first one was natural selection. Okay, so natural selection it's selecting those who can survive in an environment due to environmental pressures and specific, for instance, like beak shape. So specific things that allow them to survive in that environment. So natural selection is going to decrease species diversity because you're taking species out of a population. Okay, mutations. Okay. So mutation is just a change in the DNA of a cell. Okay. Mutations, the thing you need to know about this is it can be beneficial, it can be harmful, or it can be neutral. So of course, if it's beneficial, it can actually increase the diversity of a species. If it's harmful, it can decrease. And if it's neutral, it's not going to hurt the diversity of the species. Okay. Genetic drift. Okay. So genetic drift refers to the idea a specific trait is controlled on a chromosome. Okay. Can become more or less common in a population completely by chance. Okay. So in this case, remember the frogs died out. The brown frogs died out, and only the green frogs survived. Okay. So this is going to decrease the diversity because you took out a whole section of the population. Okay. Gene flow is probably one you understand the most. It's just the movement of populations from one to another. So if you're moving into a population, those species are going to have an increase in diversity because you're adding more in. And the one that they're leaving, the population that is leaving, are going to have a decrease. So gene flow is the movement of species, and it's going to increase or decrease species diversity. And then recombination is the process that happens in sexual reproduction. It's the shuffling of alleles, meaning an organism is going to have way more diversity and allowing it to survive longer or better in its environment. Okay, hope you all have a good day.